Zathura, the movie I was looking for over 5 years. See, when I went back to watch this movie, I was kind of expecting it to be shit, because, you know, a lot of mid-2000s sci-fi, mostly CGI movies were pretty ass cheeks, but I was surprised that this movie was really good. I actually enjoyed this. There's not a whole lot I can really nitpick in this movie. It was pretty solid. And a little fun fact for you guys, in this movie, a lot of the effects you see are real-time effects. They're not CGI. The robot and the lizard thingies, those were actually made. They made those specifically for the movie. Now, I'm not going to do a full summary of the movie. I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of info. If you want to go watch it, you can go buy it. It's pretty solid. It's a fun movie. There's not really a lot of dull moments in it, unlike a lot of even today's AAA movies. I'll give you guys a little quick rundown of the movie. It follows the littlest brother named Danny and the older brother Walter, or the Hunger Games kid. Basically, they're having a feud and whatnot, jealous over who gets attention of their dad, something I never had. They bicker back and forth with each other like normal brothers do, and their dad has to go on some business meeting or some shit, so they're left alone at the house, and a little bit later on, they find the board game itself, Zathura. Now, the boys have an older sister, who I don't really know the name of, but she's pretty cute, and there's a pretty chill space guy who comes in like halfway through the movie. But like I was saying earlier, this movie doesn't really have many dull moments, and there's plenty of antagonists in the movie. I mean, you have meat-eating lizards, giant robots, piles of guacamole, and whatever the fuck that thing is. Now, usually I would spend the next couple of minutes making fun of scenes from the movie, but honestly, it's not that bad of a movie. But one thing I will point out is the Walter kid, he's kind of a dick. He's a little bit of a douchebag.
Can he get it? Can he get it?
Oh, Milton Bradley with the diving roll catch! Dodgers win! You're such a dick!
See, this is why they tossed your ass in the Hunger Games arena. You're just a little hating-ass bitch, Walter! But as you can probably see, this video is nowhere near done. But that's because I have something special to show you guys. I have in my hands a copy of Zathura, the video game. That's right, this game actually exists, and I have the pleasure of owning a copy of it. Now that I look at it, the cover art kind of looks like Star Wars, doesn't it? Just me? Okay. Anyways, you guys remember back in the early to mid 2000s when game companies would make a video game adaptation of literally any movie or TV show that they could get their greedy hands on? Like, seriously, who thought of some of this shit? For example, G-Force for the Nintendo DS? What the fuck? I never knew there was such a thing as a Zathura video game either until my cousin and I noticed it at a local retro game store. At first when I saw it, I just kind of ignored it and moved on. But I looked at it again, and the cover art seemed familiar to me, and that's when it hit me. This is the movie I've been searching for almost a decade. Exaggerating a bit, but you get what I mean. And well, it's not the movie itself, it's close enough. But before we get any further, let's take a look at the case and see what type of shit we're getting into. The first thing I noticed on the case was the small free movie pass sticker on the bottom center of the cover, and I kind of thought to myself, how were they able to make this game and release it around the same time the actual movie it's based on is released? This got me curious, so I looked up when the game and the movie were released, and apparently the game came out 8 days before the actual movie hit theaters. Which is odd, because if the game follows the same plot as the movie, wouldn't it spoil the movie and kind of ruin the hype the game was meant to build up for it? And the answer to that is, yeah, not really. The game's story has almost fuck all to do with the actual movie plot. The game in some parts is still based on events that happen in the movie, but after the first 2 missions, the game kind of trails off on its own storyline, if that's what you want to call it. Most of the missions don't really have anything to do with the plot and are just some basic copy and paste platformer levels used to fill up runtime. After about an hour of playing, I lost track of what the actual hell was going on story-wise. One mission you're playing as Walter, and the next one you're playing as a robot blasting through a spaceship killing other robots. Why, you ask? I couldn't fucking tell you, because I honestly don't know. But let's move on from talking about the plot and talk about some of that baller PS2 powered platformer gameplay. Now, overall, this game is mediocre at best, but what can you really expect from a 13-year-old movie game? The expectations for this game being anything above average were lost the second someone thought of making it. Now, I'm not a professional game reviewer, or even a game reviewer at that, but I'll try to summarize how the game plays out the best I can. In the game, you play as 3 different characters: Danny, the Hunger Games kid, whom I can't remember the name of, and the killer robot guy, who I'm just gonna call Orgasmatron from now on. You switch between characters each level, and in my opinion, the Orgasmatron levels are the most enjoyable ones, which isn't saying much because each level is the most basic cookie cutter shit for a shooter platformer possible. It's basically a combination of follow the tunnel, shoot the bad guy robots, break boxes to get ammo and health, shoot the generators to proceed, and so on and so forth. Occasionally, you'll have to fight a boss, which can be pretty fucking difficult for the first couple of times until you learn their weak spots. Honestly, this game is fairly difficult, and even I, being a professional gamer myself, had trouble on some parts. but I'm just gonna blame that on the shitty level design so it doesn't hurt my ego. Which, if you couldn't tell already from the gameplay, there's plenty of that. Seriously, every room or area you go into looks exactly the same as all the other rooms in the level. You can easily tell they just copied and pasted levels together. This helps the already boring atmosphere of the game get even more boring faster. It's so repetitive that I had to take breaks every 1 to 2 levels because I just couldn't fucking stand doing the same thing over and over and over. Now, the game mechanics itself aren't too bad for a PS2 game. It's fairly simple, and once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. As I said earlier, it's just the same shit over and over again. So once you get good at the controls, you're basically set for the rest of the game. But back to the level design for a bit. The most difficult thing about this game has got to be the obstacle course that's set up occasionally once or twice in a level. For example, on the second level, the camera moves to a 2D angle, and you have to get through timed laser tripwires and jump on moving platformers to reach the top. And Jesus Christ, this took me almost 50 tries to do. While the controls in this game are easy to understand and get the hang of, they're still PS2 3D platformer controls, and at times they're clunky as hell. And I kept noticing that sometimes the duck or jump will have a long delay after you press the button, but as I mentioned earlier, this is just another reskinned mediocre platformer game, only made to capitalize on the actual movie it's based on. It's not completely awful, but I honestly can't recommend you go on eBay and buy it, even if you're a massive Zathura fan, if that fandom even exists. It's basic, has more cons than pros, and for the $5 or however much this game costs now, you could use that money for a much superior game like Lego Star Wars, which I also recently bought. Even though this is a kid's game, if little Sammy woke up on Christmas Day back in 2005 and opened up Zathura the game, he'd still probably be pretty disappointed. But that's where I'm gonna wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you're like me and you couldn't figure out the name of this movie forever, you feel at peace. You can rest easier at night, because I know damn well I can. Even though my channel's been growing really well recently, I've kind of been lacking on the content side, and that's because of real life. I have a lot of shit going on, and not a whole lot of time for YouTube. But you guys probably don't give a shit about that. But if you like this video, you want to see more like it, make sure you hit subscribe. I might make more similar videos to this. It's been a while since I made a video on a movie or even a video game at that. I'm going to go find some more shitty PS2 games to waste even more of my time on.